A very
Hello, how
good
are you?
evening. Very good evening, sir. Very good evening.
Good evening
My-
to you.
Before we begin, for my audience, sir, there is a very small and friendly advice. Friends, our guest this evening has a rare ability to make you laugh, challenge a long held assumption, and maybe quietly send you to Google a word, sometimes all in the same sentence. The gentleman in front of us with that unmistakable smile resist any neat labels. Dr. Shashi Tharoor is an author, historian, parliamentarian, former international civil servant, and a public intellectual. But, but, describing him only that way would be like calling the Taj Mahal a very well constructed building. He is one of the few geniuses who can make even footnotes sound interesting. He sings, appears on stand up comedy platforms with the same ease as on serious policy panels, connects across generations, leaving audiences entertained and almost always wiser. All of that apart, he is a mind that speaks its own truth, keeping India at the core. So, I'm grateful you are addressing us today with a fractured leg in the middle of a demanding session of parliament from which you have just returned, and yet you choose to spend this evening with us at EPFO. That decision itself, sir, says much more than any introduction can ever attempt. Showing up even when it is inconvenient may be the first lesson of the day for all of us this evening. We are deeply grateful, truly grateful to you, sir. To begin formally, may I request Mr. Rijwanuddin and Mr. Manish Nayyar, both RPFCs, to felicitate Dr. Tharoor as is the tradition of RGDE, sir.
They have both come very kindly to do this. I'm sorry, getting up periodically is not advisable because of my fractured foot. So I'm just sitting and taking it from them. Thank you very much, both of you. Thank you so much. Rizwanji and Manishji, thank you.
It's time now to request Sri Kumar Rohit, the director of the National Academy, for his quick opening remarks, please.
Honorable Dr. Shashi Tharoor, respected Central PF Commissioner, distinguished dignitaries, and dear colleagues joining us from across the country. It's a privilege to welcome you to the 24th edition of Reimagining Governance Discourse for Excellence at Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay National Academy of Social Security. Today we gather to reflect on a theme that is both timely and timeless, reimagining governance. It calls upon us to look ahead with clarity and courage. Yet, as India's civilizational wisdom reminds us, the future often becomes clearer when we also look back to the philosophical foundations that have sustained us for centuries. This theme brings to mind the 11th century Gauri Shankar temple at Naggar in Kullu. Carved in stone is a striking sculpture of Shiv Parivar, Lord Shiva and Goddess Parvati, seated with Ganesha and Kartikeya. What first captures attention is their serene, expansive smile, the big smile, calm, assured, and benevolent. Its deeper meaning lies below the pedestal, where natural adversaries stand together. The lion beside the bull, the peacock alongside the snake, and the snake next to the mouse. In nature, such coexistence would be impossible. Yet here, they exist in perfect equilibrium. This reflects Indian idea of virodhabhas, the harmony of opposites. The serene smile ever becomes the moral force that binds contradictions into balance. It reminds us that governance does not arise from eliminating differences, but from harmonizing them. Sir, as you have observed, I quote, anything you can say about India, the opposite is also true, unquote. That paradox is not a weakness, it is our strength. At EPFO, we encounter a similar paradox. We are guardians of old age security, entrusted with safeguarding the distant future. Yet many younger subscribers increasingly seek withdrawals to meet immediate aspirations. We stand between the certainty of tomorrow and the urgency of today. Our task is not to resist this contradiction, but to harmonize it, protecting long-term security while respecting present-day choice, upholding discipline while embracing flexibility. In our own way, we practice virodhabhas. In this era of evolving expectations, there could be no one more appropriate than you, a writer, thinker, and statesman, to guide our reflections. Thank you, sir, for graciously accepting our invitation. We are deeply honored. Thank you, Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir. It's time for me to request our CEO, Sri Ramesh Krishnamurthy, the Central Provident Commissioner, to share his thoughts, please.
Namaskar, sir, and very warm welcome to you to this 24th edition of Reimagining Governance. This lecture series, sir, has already crossed 2 years. And we are very thankful to the very eminent people who have gracing this lecture series, and we are very honored to have you amongst us today. You don't need any introduction. I think Uttam Prakash and Kumar Rohit have very eloquently spoken about you already. So I'll not stand in between you and our speaker, sir. Only I wanted to let you know that there are literally hundreds and thousands of our officers and staff who have joined online to hear you, and also from the side of EPFO, as Kumar Rohit has already put it, we are at the cusp of change, and we want to make sure that EPFO, as the beacon of social security, lives up to its expectations and also keeps in time with the contemporary needs of the younger generation, because this younger generation is going to get old in 2050, 2060, at the time when India will become Viksit Bharat. And if EPFO is not there to help them at that time of old age, I think we'll be doing a great disservice to this great nation. So I want to assure you, sir, from our side, from every officer and staff, that we stand together and to make sure that India in 2047 is able to take care of its elder generation. So with these words, sir, I again would request you to give us the guidance, your expertise, couched with, as is already want, your euphemisms and your irreplaceable fair phrases, so which will carry over. Probably something unique will come out today, which we'll be able to showcase to the rest of the world. Thank you so much, sir, and welcome again. And I'm really, really honored and thankful to you for taking the time to be with us today, sir.
Thank you
so
very
much, sir.
much. Thank you very much, Mr. Krishnamurthy. And of course, thank you, Kumar Rohit and Uttam Prakash, for those very generous words at the beginning. I must apologize that the reason that I had to ask you to move the program from 4:30 to 4 o'clock is because I have to return to Parliament immediately after 5, since we are expecting the reply of the Honorable Finance Minister to the budget debate, which I had led off yesterday on behalf of my party. And it would be discourteous not to be present when the minister replies. So the reply is expected by 5:30. I will really have to cut this short And I hope you will all understand, but I hope we can have a good hour together before I leave from you. So distinguished dignitaries, colleagues, all gathered here online, virtually, and in reality, with faith in the power of enlightened public service, let me begin by saying it's both an honor and a responsibility to speak at the second anniversary edition of Reimagining Governance, Discourse for Excellence, an endeavor of the National Academy of Social Security. Anniversaries are not merely occasions of remembrance, they are opportunities for renewal, for self-examination, and for a reaffirmation of purpose. And that's exactly what I heard in the words of Mr. Krishnamurthy just before he gave me the floor. Today, we reflect not merely on governance as an administrative necessity, but as a moral contract between the state and its people. You know, across the world, the understanding of good governance has been shaped by timeless principles. The United Nations reminds us that governance must be participatory, transparent, accountable, inclusive, effective, and firmly anchored in the rule of law. When these virtues guide the state, governance becomes not a distant mechanism, but a living assurance of dignity and justice. It becomes the quiet confidence with which a citizen approaches a public institution, knowing that fairness awaits rather than uncertainty. Yet, even as we cherish these ideals, modern governance presents paradoxes that compel us to think deeply. Never before has the state possessed such sophisticated capability to know its citizens. From birth registration to digital identities, the individual today is recorded, archived, and recognizable within countless systems. And yet, the same citizen of India is asked repeatedly to prove identity, repeatedly to present the same documents, repeatedly to justify their very existence. This is the irony of governance in our time. Abundant data, insufficient trust. Massive technological capacity, but fragmented institutional will. The lesson is clear. Governance must evolve towards integration, towards faith in verified systems, and towards a citizen experience free from needless repetition and indignity. You know, when the UIDAI was introduced, the Aadhaar as we know it, the logic was to ease citizens' daily lives and their interactions with official institutions and with the government. However, this objective has not been fully taken to its logical conclusion. Surely every citizen should be able to carry a single card that contains their photograph and biometric details, and that should be enough to prove their identity in every situation, instead of having to go through multiple verifications and documents for multiple different occasions. You know, the familiar phrase that Narendra Modi ji used when he first ran for Prime Minister in 2014, less government, more governance, has often been invoked as a mantra of reform. It must be properly understood. The aspiration is not for less government in the sense of a shrinking state that withdraws from responsibility, but rather for a wiser state that reduces unnecessary intrusion into the lives of citizens while strengthening essential support for them. Governance must become self-assured rather than suspicious, facilitative rather than obstructive, rooted in partnership and not in command. What we need is a society that gradually becomes more self-regulated, less policed, and more deeply guided by a sense of duty. The strongest societies are not those that are constantly supervised by authority, but those where citizens of India can exercise their moral responsibility as a natural habitat. Now, as a natural habit is what I meant to say, but also make make moral responsibility a natural habitat for all of us is not a bad thing. Now, good governance, of course, demands transparency, empathy, efficiency, and integrity. Yet we must acknowledge the obstacles. And let's be very frank here amongst friends. Bureaucratic inertia, institutional comfort with outdated procedures, political pressures, and sometimes the simple lack of courage to reform. These hurdles are real and must be confronted not with cynicism, but with determination. Governance must never forget that each rule you make touches an Indian life. Each delay you cause affects a human being's livelihood. Each file that you sit on represents a beating human heart of a citizen. In this endeavor, technology actually has emerged as a powerful ally. E-governance has opened horizons once considered unimaginable. Digital identities, online service delivery, grievance tracking platforms, and data-driven policymaking have all strengthened the machinery of the state. Properly designed, technology can reduce the shadow of corruption, can speed processes, and of course, it can restore fairness. But technology must never become a cold substitute for the compassion of human beings. Machines can calculate, but justice is a human calling. Technology must remain an instrument guided by our conscience. As we move deeper into the digital age, we must confront the uncomfortable reality of the digital divide. Technology empowers, but it can also exclude. Those without access, without literacy, without affordability, they risk being pushed into the margins. If governance becomes exclusively digital, without being inclusively digital, it betrays its moral purpose. We've all heard about how students have missed exams because of technical failure and internet letdown and inability to log on to a site. Bridging this divide, therefore, becomes not just a technical necessity, but an ethical imperative for all of us dealing with governance. Now, for technology to truly transform governance, the underlying administrative processes must themselves evolve. We must not merely digitize inefficiency, we must redesign it. You know, there's a phrase called government process reengineering. I would commend it to you. It's essential. Government processes have to be re-engineered. What does that mean? Simplification of rules, elimination of redundant steps, clarity in procedures, and the replacement of file culture and red tape with service culture and a red carpet. These are all indispensable. I know I'm sounding like the kinds of things our Prime Minister has said before, but I think you all know this has not happened enough in our offices. Sometimes a file needs 4 signatures. The first fellow sits on it for weeks. The second one is away on leave after the first one has signed it. By the time the third one has come back, he has been sent off to some other duty. A file that could have been disposed of by 2 people in half a day or maybe even half an hour actually takes weeks or months to be cleared. That is unnecessary. Where possible, human discretion should yield to clear, predictable systems, while still preserving space for humane judgment in exceptional situations. At the same time, let us remember that digital governance is meaningful only when its platforms are reliable. We have to debug and refine our present websites, our present e-governance and m-governance portals. That's not a technical footnote. It is actually central to governance credibility. I mentioned students unable to get into an exam because of an internet breakdown or a technical glitch or a website that keeps crashing. A citizen who cannot access a portal is not merely inconvenienced. he or she is actually being excluded from your governance. So a governance structure that aspires to moral legitimacy must be built upon a grievance redressal system that truly works. A state that listens becomes a state that heals. When systems fail, as sometimes they inevitably do, the citizen must find within the state a willing ear and an effective remedy. Grievance mechanisms restore faith, prevent frustration from erupting into social conflict, and serve as vital instruments of institutional learning. They are not favor-giving platforms. They are instruments of democratic respect. Never think that by giving one of your clients Social Security, the EPFO is doing anybody a favor. It is your duty to do it. It is their right to receive it. That should be implicit in the way in which you approach governance, because the quality of governance very much depends on the character, the intellect, the mental attitude, the mindset of those who administer it. Administrators must embody a scientific temperament, decisions that are grounded in evidence, that are shaped by reason, that are informed by data, that are tested through evaluation, and that are constantly refined through learning. And that kind of process is a science, but science must always walk in hand in hand with humanity. Empathy, humility, integrity, a sense of service, these are human qualities, and they're not embellishments. They are essential. Authority without empathy creates distance. Knowledge without ethics creates arrogance. The top levels of the bureaucracy in particular always carry the obligation of wise decision-making. The heads of institutions, the top layer, their role is not merely to process, but to think, not merely to follow procedure, but to shape direction, not merely to maintain order, but to nurture justice. Paralysis of decision-making is as harmful as reckless haste in decision-making. What governance needs is courage balanced by wisdom. Policy then becomes the guiding star. Policy must be visionary, yet firmly rooted in reality. It must be inclusive, aligned with constitutional values, measurable in outcomes, and adaptable to changing needs. But policy alone is insufficient unless animated by political will, also by administrative competence, by the trust of the citizenry, and of course by technological support. Good policy must walk out of documents and enter people's lives. Now, at the heart of democratic governance lies a profound moral truth. And that moral truth is this: government is not a benevolent donor distributing favors, it is a custodian of people's rights. Good governance, good government service is not charity, it is a rightful entitlement of the people. Freebies and momentary enticements may capture attention, but they do not build enduring trust. What sustains democratic legitimacy is dependable, dignified, and fair access to public services. Governance must remain democratic, not merely in form, but in spirit. Transparency is the soul of democratic accountability. Yet today we witness a growing unease. The right to information, once a powerful instrument of citizen empowerment, risks becoming sedentary, formal, existing on paper, but increasingly constrained in practice. At the same time, the age of data forces us to be mindful of data privacy, data protection. Data governance, after all, must not become surveillance governance. The challenge before us is to preserve transparency while safeguarding dignity. to encourage openness without carelessly exposing personal security. Privacy and accountability are not enemies. They are parallel pillars of ethical governance. You started off with the image of a temple. And in thinking about ethical governance, I'll give you another image, another metaphor from our old ancient civilization, all the wonderful parables of the Puranas and our sacred texts, like that of the temple. And that is the enduring metaphor in the story of King Shibi Maharaj. When a helpless dove sought refuge in the arms of the king, a dove that was being pursued by a hawk demanding its prey, the king did not hide behind royal privilege or even rhetorical compassion. He offered the hawk his own flesh to protect the innocent life of the dove he had promised to shelter. That story is not about some sort of supernatural sacrifice. It is about the moral accountability of a king. All those involved in governance, like Maharaj Shibi, must understand that power carries responsibility. The vulnerable who come to the state in trust must never leave the state in a feeling despair. When the state gives refuge, it must honor that refuge, just like Shibi Maharaja, even at the cost and discomfort of itself. Governance is not merely authority, my friends. It is guardianship. India, with all her splendor, is not a monolith, but a mosaic. Our languages, our cultures, our lifestyles, our social realities, and our aspirations are all wonderfully diverse. Such a nation cannot be governed through rigid central uniformity. So, I know that you have colleagues listening all over the country, and that shows that you are doing the right thing in trying to reach the beneficiaries where they are. Decentralization is the name of your game, and governance must breathe through decentralization. Local wisdom must find space. Communities must feel ownership of your governance. Gandhiji's idea of Swaraj remains luminous even today. Power must always flow downwards. Governance must come closer to people. And administration must trust its citizens. Centralization may impose order, but decentralization creates belonging, and legitimacy is born not in compulsion, but in a sense of belonging. Swaraj must also mean Suraj. Now, in this journey of reimagining governance, we must build a state that listens before it instructs, serves before it demands, and trusts before it doubts. A state grounded in moral courage, guided by rational thought, strengthened by technology, purified by transparency, and enriched by human compassion. A state decentralized enough to respect the diversity of India, disciplined enough to ensure the accountability of its officers, and humane enough to remember that every citizen is not a subject, but a partner in democracy. I want to wind this up so we can have a good discussion through the Q&A. Let us therefore commit ourselves to a governance that is democratic in essence, that is transparent in conduct, that is responsive in spirit, at the same time that is technologically capable, while being ethically rooted, and is still at bottom profoundly human. For when governance becomes truly just, citizens cease to feel governed, they begin just to feel cared for. A timeless thought continues to echo through the ages, and I quote, "The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others," unquote. May governance never forget this enduring truth. In fact, let me end with another reminder from the past that continues to inspire humanity across generations. It was quoted, I remember, by Martin Luther King in America, but it was not even his line, it's an old line. The arc of the moral universe, he said, is long, but it bends toward justice. So may governance always strive to bend the arc of the moral universe with courage, with compassion, towards justice, and always with unwavering commitment to the people. Thank you very much for listening to me. Jai Hind, and I'm ready to take your questions.
Thank you so much, sir. I must say it was thoughtful, layered, and unmistakably Tharoor. Sir, there are lots of questions which has come. I will group them in few buckets and probably ask them one by one. The first bucket is education and development.
Right.
The question is from Mr. Alok Mishra, who serves as a joint secretary in our ministry, and he asks, how have foundational education gaps shaped India's development path and perhaps even the quality of our democracy? He is asking it in the context of your own personal experience while being as a minister in education as well as external affairs. And he wants to know why differing trajectories of South Asian nations that India began on the similar timeline has occurred.
This is a very good question, challenging question. As far as education is concerned, he's right that the development of education was quite uneven, in the sense that we had, in the years after independence, an emphasis on higher education which could only benefit a certain elite. And so we created a strong set of higher education institutions, a lot of very, very good elite ones like IITs, Indian Institute of Science, a few top prestigious colleges and universities, St. Stephen's, Calcutta's Presidency College, places like this that had a nationwide reputation. But how many could access them? We didn't do enough for primary education in the rural areas. And the result, unfortunately, as I said, oh, I see my video is not there, is it? When did that go?
Now it
I'm
is
so
there.
sorry.
It's there. It has come.
Has it been gone throughout my speech?
No. So only for this brief 1 minute.
I'm so sorry.
Perfect.
I'm so sorry. So in any case, as I was saying, and so at the primary education level, particularly in our rural areas, we didn't do enough to prepare the vast majority of our population for education and the opportunities that come with education. And it was pointed out, as you know, by economists in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, that no developing country has broken through to development without creating 100% literacy. And we were slow to do that. We're now getting there. We are still only a little over 80%. We still have a way to go, but it's a long way from the times of independence when India was literally just 16% literate, and Indian women were only 8.8% literate at the time of independence. So let me say that progress has been made. The questioner, Mr. Mishra, asked about the other South Asian countries. And I will say that there are two major things. One is the one country, and I would say the only country that was ahead of us in this was Sri Lanka. They emphasized universal literacy quicker than us, and they reached 90% at a time when we were still struggling just over the halfway mark. They were at 90% by the 1980s. So the Sri Lankans did a good job there, but their democracy was derailed by a crippling civil war. Pakistan essentially went under military rule. Bangladesh had various other kinds of dysfunctionalities in governance. Nepal suffered from many of the disadvantages we did. So if you look around South Asia as a whole, Sri Lanka was an outlier. India was slow to catch up, but has now caught up. But of all these countries, India has had the most successful and the most enduring democracy. Now, why successful? Because somehow, even before we acquired education and literacy, our people were trusted to express their views at the ballot box, and they did so. And because they had that awareness of their democratic rights instilled in them from an early time, today, with literacy, not only has democracy grown roots, but the voters have acquired a capacity to understand what they can get out of government and to demand more and expect more from governments. So that has been the strength of our democracy, And you won't find that in Pakistan or elsewhere. In Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh, there have been so-called Gen Z revolts, where young people who have perhaps come out of their colleges and universities are frustrated with the lack that they see of good governance and have demanded it on the streets. Fortunately, so far in India, we don't need that because we have been creating the institutions that can respond. As I said in my speech, what we need to do is to infuse those institutions with the right spirit, the right attitude, re-engineer the processes, and deliver those results.
Let me move from education to the architecture of social protection, sir, and bring technology into the conversation. This is from Mohit Sharma from Chennai. And he says, as social security systems become increasingly digital, how do we ensure that efficiency does not come at the cost of inclusion, especially
I've
on
lost
the wrong
you,
side?
especially, I lost you after the word especially. Hello?
Yes, sir. We lost you for a while.
We lost you after the word especially. How does
Especially for those who are on the wrong side of the digital divide. So how to include them, especially in a country like ours?
Genuine problem, because in fact, only half our population actually has access to the internet, even though we are touting massive penetration of mobile phones, over 900 million and so on. Some of them are duplicate phones, one individual with 2 or 3 phones, and there are still some people who don't have access. We absolutely have to ensure that if we are advancing through technology, which is not a bad thing to do for all the reasons I mentioned in my speech, we have to accompany it with service centers, for example, where somebody who does not know how to even operate a computer or a mobile phone or a laptop can go to a helpful official who will steer him through the process or her through the process to get their dues from EPFO or from any other government entity for that matter, as e-governance is spreading through every ministry, without having to feel that they're being shut out by the process. On top of that, we must understand that there are genuine other challenges in many of our places in the rural areas. The last mile connectivity is terrible. Internet breakdowns are common. Power failures are not unknown. If you can't have power to access the internet, then how do you access your benefits? How do you get your rights fulfilled? So all of these, to my mind, are extremely important for us to address. So by all means, adopt technology in the name of efficiency, but do not let technology become a barrier. Where barriers are evident, find different ways forward. You may not need as many of these centers in the affluent areas of big cities. You may need many more in poor rural areas. But what you need to do is ensure that the lowest, simplest beneficiary could be the widower of one of your EPFO beneficiaries who himself was a working person, but his widow or his surviving mother or whatever might be an aged lady without the skills required to access technology. You must have some means of helping them to access it. In fact, I would even go further and say, apart from creating service centers, it might be very good to have roving facilitators on your staff who would go from door to door, reaching the poor. Anyone should be able to enroll, not every single person, not every beneficiary, that's impossible, but all those who claim that they have difficulty in accessing your site or your services for technological handicaps. They should also be served, it seems to me, not just by service centers, but by roving correspondents with a laptop or an iPad who can go to each of these people and do whatever the technology is there to facilitate them doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Now from God's own land, sir, Kottayam, there is a philosophical question, and this is on governance, and it is Mr. Rohit Srikumar who asks, as AI becomes embedded in administration, can this logic redefine governance itself, or must human judgment remain central? This you have answered it definitely in your speech, sir, but an elaboration would be much appreciated.
No, I have answered it in my speech, but the point is absolutely, the question is a good one, because AI does simplify a lot of things. AI writes faster, AI researches faster, AI can survey much more material than a human brain can in a much shorter span of time. AI is not something to be shunned, it is to be used. But, I remember, not exaggerating, almost 40 years ago, a cartoon when computers were first invented and people started acquiring PCs in the mid 80s. So at that time, there was a wonderful cartoon of a man sitting in front of a computer saying, "Me master, you tool." And that is a slogan I want to repeat in the context of AI. We must all understand we are the masters. AI is a tool. It is a tool meant to benefit the master and the people whom the master is serving. And the people whom the master is serving should benefit through your being able to move some processes faster through AI, rather than substituting you with AI, which would be a disaster. Because AI cannot replicate touch, empathy, sight, the ability to see a human being in distress, address their problems, the ability to converse informally with them in their language, the ability to understand what their frustrations and difficulties are and try and resolve them. These are human qualities. AI can't do that. But AI can equip the person who's doing that with much more efficiency, much more speed, and perhaps much more material than he alone, that officer alone, would have been able to do.
Thank you so much, sir. I have more bunch of questions, but for the paucity of time and the important thing which you have to rush to the parliament, I would, unless you permit me, I like to stop here.
And you can have one more question. That should be all right. It's 4:45. We can take another 10 minutes to the wrapping up and all of that.
Okay, sir.
So one question.
Sir. So the question is, will an age come with the assistance of AI when the job of politicians itself will be not needed?
I joked, I actually wrote an article. I would recommend many of you to Google it in the week last month. It was called The Last Job Standing. It was very tongue-in-cheek, lighthearted. Since you mentioned that I like to make people laugh, I was meant to be that also. And I talked about what are the jobs that AI cannot replace. I mentioned the Ayurvedic masseur. Your friend in Kottayam will appreciate that, or the one in Chennai. I mentioned the air hostess on the flight. But I also mentioned MPs in passing, that you can't replace them because our job is to represent people and you can't replace people with AI. So AI will not be able to replace us. They might do a better job than some of us, and they might do it less noisily, and they might not storm into the well of Parliament and shout and scream at the Speaker and tear up his papers and all of that, which we've seen in so many of our legislatures. But they would never be able to replicate the emotion, the ethos of governance, the spirit of connection and representation, the passion to speak for the people that a parliamentarian should have. So I would say that politics is still about people. The nature of what they talk about and how they talk about it might well change with the development and evolution of AI. But I do want to say to all of you that as far as I'm concerned, use AI as a tool, but don't hesitate to demand services from your politicians, just as I'm expecting that citizens can demand services of you. It is your right. In fact, it was your Provident Fund Commissioner in Kerala who came and caught me and demanded that I should address you all. And as a representative in Parliament, I feel my duties to all the citizens, including EPFO officials. That I don't think an AI program would necessarily have agreed to do.
Thank you so much, sir. You are so sweet. You engaged not just with the questions, but the thinking behind me, sir. For a room full of administrators, that's no small gift. This evening will stay with us, sir, not simply for what you said, but also for how it was said. We are truly proud of you, sir, and we truly feel blessed this moment. Before we conclude,
I'm the one who also feels grateful because it's good to connect, not just with all of you whom I can see on the screen, but the many thousands whom I cannot see on the screen. Who knows which one of you will get transferred my way, and I may have to write for a constituent seeking your intercession to help him get his rights or his pension or his dues or whatever. And at that time, I hope you will remember that I was there for you, and you should also be there for my poor voter, my poor constituent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. But let me, sir, I'll take just 1 more minute, sir. 1 more minute.
Yes, go ahead.
I must tell you, sir, that we are the only academy in this country, sir, after Mr. Kailash Satyarthi's RGDE session, sir, we have introduced a module on compassionate governance. So probably we are moving in that direction as well, where our governance can improve, but that was a pat on our back. As of now, it has to stabilize. And but still, before you leave, sir, we would like to give you a small token of appreciation. If I can request Mr. Rizwanuddin and Mr. Manish Nair, who is there, to do the honors, please.
Thank you very much. Here it is. I'm very touched. Thank you so much, Rizwanuddin and Manish ji. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And finally, we can all switch on our cameras and take a quick selfie. And after you take a selfie, we can switch on our own TV to listen to Dr. Tharoor more, who is rushing to the parliament now. So thank you so much, sir. Wish you a speedy
I did my speaking already yesterday. Today, it is actually the finance minister's reply. But since I initiated the debate, I need to be there to listen to her reply as a basic courtesy. Again, that is something AI won't do, but human beings need to do that. Show courtesy to those they have been criticizing in Parliament.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. It will be a pleasure watching you there also, sir. Thank you so much, and everybody have a great evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so
All
much.
the best to you. Have a good day.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jai
Thank you,
Hind.
sir.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Jai Hind, sir.